April marks Dalit History Month. It's a time to remember and celebrate people once deemed untouchable by India's caste system. It's a system that even today can pose challenges outside of that country. The caste system is a strict social hierarchy that dictates life-altering restrictions, and it's based on class. It's more than 3,000 years old, but it still affects more than 1.9 billion people today globally, and that includes here in Canada. For more this morning, we're joined by cultural commentator Mira Estrada, who spoke and attended the Caste Symposium at the University of British Columbia. Mira, great to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
This is a continuation of a conversation you and I have had recently. How, first of all, are those in India and the South Asian communities being discriminated against based on caste?
Yeah, I mean, well, it is happening right here, and it is in India where it's happening in very brutal, violent ways. Still, to this day, even though it's a 3,000-year-old system, here it happens in much more subtle ways, but it is actually worsening as we see South Asian immigration. People, those values and belief systems travel along with the people. I've never lived a day in India ever, and I've experienced casteism my entire life.
I want you to go into some of those examples, but explain for people what it means to be in the caste that is labeled Dalit.
Okay, so in the Hindu system, and caste extends beyond the Hindu within Sikhism and Christianity as well, but there are 4 categories. You know, it starts, the hierarchy is priests, and then warriors, then business people, workers. Then there's a subcaste, which are called, like myself, an untouchable. We now call ourselves Dalits. And the word untouchable is such a dirty, I like to say it because that shows the violence
and cruelty.
the cruelty. And so that subcaste do the menial jobs, and you can't, whereas class, you can, that's based on your individual status and what you do. You cannot escape caste. You're born into it, and you can't escape that.
You mentioned that you have personal experience with this here in this country. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's very personal. I know what happened to my grandfather. He was not allowed to attend school. He actually learned to read and write sitting outside of a classroom. My father was the era of segregation. He sat at the back of the classroom. He wasn't called by his name. He couldn't drink from the water because his mouth was seen as dirty. And when I came, I mean, I've never lived a day in India of my life, but I experienced it in much more subtle ways. The caste slurs, you know, what caste are you? And I didn't actually speak about my caste because I knew how looked down upon it was. It took me until I was 40 years old to vocally say this, even to my best of friends. I just didn't reveal who I was. I let myself pass because I felt that shame, and I wish if we had spoken about it, if we had these conversations, I would have grown up very differently with much more self-worth.
Some examples, thank you for sharing that, Mira. Some of the examples of how we see that playing out here in this country, you know, there's an example as recently as March last month, where a man in BC was awarded $9,000 after 2 of his colleagues called him a derogatory term that was related to caste. And then very recently, the Toronto District School Board also voted to recognize caste oppression in schools. This is a problem that is still happening and in younger generations. Why are we just seeing Canada address this now? We should also mention there are laws against this in India, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter. And universities, I'm so glad that universities are starting to put this in their academia. We need to have caste as a protected category, just like race, gender, sexual orientation, because it is happening. And if we look at the states, Seattle was the first city to make that part of a protected category. Now the whole state of California is looking at that. And I think we need this national conversation in Canada. I was at a symposium just this past weekend, and it was heartbreaking because there were so many Canadian students sharing their experiences of casteism to the point, there was a student who actually left university. He couldn't take it anymore. And in India, you see so many cases of people taking their own lives because they can't handle the way that they are treated.
And the oppression that comes with that. Mira, thank you for bringing this topic to light, having these conversations, bringing them out into the open. We appreciate you sharing your story and information too.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.